Hey guys, so as CAT is just less than a week away from now, so we are here to address any queries which you might have as we are down closer to the day zero. Uh, we will try to address all your doubts and queries here. We have tried to structure this live session in four broad parts. First, we'll go through our introduction. Second, we'll try to address some of the things which you should do in the last 1 week, some of the things which you should avoid doing. Then after that, we'll go through a broad overview of each of the sections which we have in the CAT examinations. And towards the last, we'll take all the questions which you might have in the live chat. So let's start with the introduction first.
Just before we start, I think you guys can hold on to your questions till we get to the Q&A part of it, so that we'll be able to address every question that comes up in the chat. Yeah, I'll start it off then. My name is Sahil Parak. I'm a chartered accountant and a BCom graduate. My CAT percentile was 99.69. Before joining IIM Calcutta, I have 18 months of work ex in B Smart and Associates, which is a boutique IB firm.
Yes, so I'll go next.
Okay, so my name is Vinamra Agarwal, and I'd scored the 99.88 percentile in CAT 2021. And it was my first attempt. I'm an engineer from BITS Pilani, and I had worked for roughly around 10 months in PwC as an associate. And yeah.
Yes, so let me go next. I am Shubhrang Dikshit, and I completed my engineering from NIT Kurukshetra. Basically, I'm a mechanical engineer. And after that, I also worked for L&T Infotech for 1 year. And I also worked for ZS Associate for almost 10 years. So that's about me. And yes, I'm excited for this Q&A session.
Nice. So I'm Aditya, and I have completed my BTech from IIT Delhi. I am a 2021 graduate. After that, I worked for approximately 1 year in Capital One. It's a US banking firm. So we can jump into next part.
And I also worked for ZS Associate for almost
some of the do's and don'ts.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Aditya. So I'll be walking you through the general do's and don'ts that you should be looking at in the last week before CAT. To start off with, the first thing that you should be taking care of is your sleep pattern and your food habits. That is of utmost importance because you ideally don't want to be not 100% on the D-Day. So make sure that your body clock is aligned with your CAT attempt timing. You might have received your admit cards by now, so just make sure that you align yourself whatever your timing is. And for example, if you have an 8 a.m. slot, you don't want to be sleeping at 2 a.m. every night before the exam. You won't be 100% waking up at that day. So yeah, take care of that. Secondly, when it comes to food, try eating healthy for the last week. You don't want to have an upset stomach on the day of the exam. Believe me, that's not what you would be wanting to have while you're thinking of your LR set sitting in that pressure. The next thing is, if you have not already known the interface of the exam, how it will actually be conducted through your mocks, make sure that you at least give one mock to know about the interface that the actual CAT exam will be following. This involves even the hardware, just like using a touchpad or a mouse. That's a significant difference, right? So you don't want to be wasting time when you switch to something else which is not actually followed in exam. The other thing is the on-screen calculator. We generally are used to using an in-hand calculator. So make sure you are familiar with using an on-screen calculator as well. These are very small things which actually make the difference on the D-Day. Another thing that you should be looking at is all the generic basic formalities like printing out your admit card, making sure you have your pens, pencils, whatever, making sure that you know where the center is. At the D-Day, you don't want to be coming late to the center just because it was some other institute and you mistook it for your actual center. Believe me, that's a very risky thing to happen, and that just adds to the anxiety. So figure this out beforehand, because all the logistics, all of that is very important on that day. Another don't I believe, which is very important, is attempting too many mocks in the last week. You're just going to burden yourself with anxiety. Let's say you don't get a good score, that's just going to play on your mind when you're giving the actual exam. So what I did is I just attempted one. I scored a decent score in that mock, and I just left on a high note. So 4 days ago I gave my last mock, scored a decent score, and I was in a very good frame of mind going into my actual exam. So that is one thing that I think everyone should be taking care of. It's important to stay relaxed because the exam is all about confidence. I believe the prep is the first leg of it. I think we are done with it. We are in the pretty much the fag end of the journey in terms of giving the exam. So yeah, make sure you're very relaxed. You're confident in what you've done. The next point that you should be considering is, if you're in the second or third attempt on the D-Day, make sure that you don't look at the first or the second attempt, what has happened, what kind of questions were asked, what sets were difficult, because that's just going to not help in any kind of way. The sets are completely different. For example, your first slot might be VARC heavy, the second slot might be DILR heavy. You never know. So you just don't want to build on those predictions that you might think of, because it's just going to create a bias when you sit for the actual exam. The last thing is, this is actually during the exam or some kind of prep before. So just imagine that there is a set which you haven't been able to solve, right? You've already spent 5, 7, 8 minutes on it, and you have reached absolutely nowhere. Make sure that you have already imagined that kind of scenario in your head, because trust me, something or the other will happen on the D-Day which will fluster you, and you don't want to end up in a position where your further attempts get ruined in terms of questions. So think of that scenario, because this is where your mocks will help. You must have encountered some problems while giving your mocks, spending too much time on a DILR set or reading a passage and then just wondering, what have I gone through? That happens. So think of these scenarios, think what you'll do on the D-Day, and make sure you're very clear about it, because on that day you don't want to be wasting even 1 second in that case. These are some general points I think that you should be looking at. If you were to move on to sections, individual sections, and how to go about it, I think we'll start off with Aditya, who'll walk you through the VARC section.
Yes, definitely. So we can look into individual sections one way. Let's start with VRC. So we have we'll split it into two parts. What should we do now as we approach the examinations? And the second one would be, how should we attempt the actual set on the D-Day? So let's talk first about what should we do in the 1 week uh, on that track to examination. So my hypothesis here is that all the practice which you needed to do about solving the RCs, and also about doing the sets on different verbal ability kind of things. So that have already basically you have already excelled in that. You have done enough number of practice sets. You have done enough number of mock tests and other things. So now what should you do is actual just read stuff, whatever you get, not from the like point of view of examinations, just from the point of view of or whatever you are interested in reading. Just read so that you get that momentum in the right place, where you are able to quickly go through all the sets in which you need to read a lot when you are attempting the RCs. So just read a lot, read newspapers, read your favorite novel. It will also help you in basically keeping your cool at the right place. And also, apart from reading, what you can do is basically you can base you can look into your time allocation and strategy for the actual D-Day. So you can look into your previous mocks, and you can see how much time did you allocate to different RCs, how much time did you allocate to VA, and you can just adjust your strategy as per your previous experiences. Coming to the second part of things, or what should you do on the actual D-Day? So as per, like, different people can have a different basically set of expertise, set of time frames which they want to allocate in the paper. But as per my experience, what has worked well for me is splitting the 40 minutes time into basically two brackets of 30 and 10. So what I like to do is I like to keep 10 minutes apart, like on the lock for the basically VA section, in which I try to attempt basically all the questions of parajumble or basically you can say summary or odd one out. And in the first 30 minutes, I try to wrap up all the RCs. So in RCs, you have roughly four RCs, which with 4 to 6 questions in different kind of permutation. So try to assign roughly 8 minutes to one RC, where you can assign the first 4 minutes for reading through it and understanding what is the context, and the next 4 minutes in answering the questions. So that can be a rough framework which can work for many people. But again, like, look what had worked for you in the past mocks, and basically synthesize your strategy in the best possible way that can be basically most comfortable for you. So we can take the questions on this particular section towards the last. We can first move to the second part, which would be DILR. I think Shubhrang would be taking that up, right?
Yes. Thanks, Aditya. So let's go ahead with the LRDI section. Like LRDI is the trickiest section, I believe, among the all three, because this section is very much uncertain. Like you will put your time and effort to one set, and you don't know even if you will get the answers or not. So this is a tricky and difficult section to crack. But I believe with the patience and practice, you can crack this section, sail through it very easily. And since only 5 or 6 days are left for the CAT, I believe we have already passed that first leg that already Sahil mentioned that. And the current week is more about getting into the mental stage where you are in a mental stage where you are able to perform your best, right? So for that you need confidence. Like whatever you have done till now is pretty much worthy of a good score. So believe in your preparation. That is first thing. And along these lines, I'll say that you should not be indulging in the last 5 6 days. You should not be indulging in solving new puzzles. Rather than going for new puzzles, what you should do is look what you have done in the mock, what kind of sets you have covered in the mock. One kind of worry that students take is the unconventional set that comes in the CAT exam. So each year CAT includes one new kind of set that nobody has seen. So don't worry about that, because that is due for every competitor, right? Every test taker. So that is equally difficult for everyone. So don't worry much about that. Instead, you should what you should do is in these 5 6 days is to go through the past year papers first thing. Look what kind of set CAT has covered in last 3 4 years. So that would be first thing. And after covering the past year papers, second thing that you can do is to identify what is your strength. Like in terms of LRDI, for some it could be the logical reasoning, it could be data interpretation, could also be a strength for some. So look whatever box you have given, like where you are accuracy is more, where you are taking less time. So analyze these things in past 5 days and understand your strong area. And if you see anything that is coming from your strong area in the D-Day, so attempt that thing first. I believe so. That was about the 5 6 days. On that D-Day, when you are attempting the section, it's important that in the first 10 12 minutes you take 3 or 4 answers in this particular section, because you solve a set for 8 or 9 minutes, and after that if you haven't take, so it starts getting in your head like it's already been past 10 minutes and I haven't put a single tick mark. So it's important that you start with your strongest section, so that you get that mental confidence, mental boost in middle of the section. So that is important. So do this thing. This had worked for me in the mocks as well as in the day. And secondly, what you can do is read all the questions apart from the set information. Read all the questions and the options that are given with the question. That sometimes help very much. So you need to, like, apart from being skilled in logical reasoning, you need to be a little bit smart as well. Try to use options as much as you can, rather than taking it on your ego, like to solve the complete set. Sometimes rather than even a half solved set can gives you three or four correct answers. So go for that. So I'll say, and finally, don't go for quantity. Accuracy is what matters in this section. So this will grab you marks or numbers, score. So go for accuracy. And yeah, that's all for this section. I'll think we'll go with Vinam for the quant section.
Yeah, so just before I get into discussing about quant specific things, there were just few thoughts that I'd like to spell out. Like, so what Shubhrang said regarding like the accuracy part, like that I feel is true for literally every section, be it quant, DILR. So DILR, I remember in my attempt there were 4 sets, and I think I attempted only 2 of them fully and 1 half set. And you may like even I think the second one that I attempted fully, I left 1 question in the end. But the fact was the other questions I was completely confident, so I didn't have any negative marking. And even one negative mark that you have, your percentile can shift by a lot. So that the thing about not going for bulk and just focusing on your accuracy, that is extremely important. And definitely half sets are something which I feel everyone should focus on, because often in the set, the last 2 questions may be easier than the first 2. And just by obsessing that you're not getting the first 2 ones, you could end up leaving free marks, which others could take advantage of. So specific to quant, I think relative to the other 2 sections, quant is the most straightforward. And I think the ones which, like, you have a set pattern. All of you must have done your Sarvesh Agarwal's and your the other preparation books you have, and gone through all your mocks and whatnot. And I think the tip that I had, which worked for me, was whenever I used to attempt any kind of quant paper, if I read the question and within 10 seconds I do not have any idea, or like I do not have a concrete idea of how to solve it, I would just move to the next question. And similar to the advice that Shubhran gave to solving DLR sets regarding looking at the options. In quant, in my, which was the second slot in 2021, there were literally 3 questions which I looked at the options and I immediately knew that half of the options were not valid for that particular problem. So it saved me a lot of time. And quant is a section that people like, DILR is typically not very high scoring. VARC varies a lot, but quant is just usually, unless you got a difficult slot, it's just a game of speed. So use the options. You don't waste too much time. And I used to usually structure my approach into 3 ways. So 3 kind of goals. The first go, I would just aim to get like the 10, 12 easiest questions that I could. So within like 10, 15 minutes, you're done. You have a good solid foundation set. Then you go again on the topic. So I personally struggled a lot with geometry. Like always, geometry problems used to take me a lot of time. So I would leave them to the end, not waste my time, because if in the first around 20 minutes, you've set that good tempo, you're in a good mood that I have answered these many number of questions, the remaining exam, trust me, just your confidence will help you get those few extra questions, even though initially you may think you may not be able to crack them. And like in the final week specifically, like I would just suggest that you go through all the formulas. Each one of you would have identified that certain areas are weak, certain areas are strong. Like for me, geometry was the weakest out of all the topics in maths. So I had like a book where I'd written certain number of questions, or even in my mocks, for quant, I used to just mark out questions which I couldn't solve, or I ended up doing wrong due to some kind of silly mistake. I did not solve any new mock in the last week. I just went back to those old mocks and checked those few questions, went through all the formulas one by one. And I think that kind of helped me, because like all of us have been saying over and over again, like the prep, I'm pretty sure all of you who have joined in today, all of your prep is on point. There's not going to be any doubt about that. The only difference is going to come in how you're going to manage the stress on that day. And that is something which, like when I was in your position around a year ago and I was reaching out to my seniors or alums who were there in different colleges, they kept telling me this thing, that most of the people who give this exam, who've prepared for it, their prep is on point. On that day, whether you can control your nerves, whether one section goes wrong. So in DILR, the set that I did, the half set, it was actually the difficult set. And I realized in the last 5 minutes when I looked at the easy set that this was something I could do, but I didn't have time left. But it was important not to mess up my quant section just because DILR perhaps did not go 100%, right? So don't carry over any regret. Once the section is done, you're done. You just move on to the next section. It's done and dusted. At this point of time, you cannot do anything to improve that performance. Why do you want to unnecessarily reduce the performance or the maximum potential that you can still score? And trust me, both me and my friends here would agree that we've heard experiences we ourselves must have felt after coming out that perhaps the exam did not go so well. But if this lot was difficult, it was difficult for everyone. If you struggled in, if let's say you were really good in quant and you were expecting that you would be able to solve all of them, or you were really good in VRC, and then somehow that set happens to throw you completely off. Trust me, if you were thrown off, 99% of applicants were also thrown off. So don't take too much stress. Just focus on your basics. Go through all your old mistakes, whatever you had done. And yeah, it's just incredibly important to uh, not make this exam more than it is. Like at the end of the day, it's just an exam. Worst case scenario, what will happen is maybe your percentile will move a few points here or there, but it's not the end of the world. People make the exam like the more you think about it and the more you try to make it into a huge thing, you're just hampering your chances. So just relax, go out for a walk, meet your friends, talk to them, and you'll do the best possible that you can possibly do on that D-Day. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on quant, at least what I feel that you guys can do.
Yeah. So, I totally agree with Vinamra on this. So, if I were to share my personal experience with the paperwork, it would be for me, accuracy is the main thing. So, what has worked consistently for me that I would when I was giving marks or even I was giving the actual exam paper, I came out, I called my friends that how many questions they attempted, how did they feel the paper was. They attempted a way more number of questions than I did. And that somewhere starts giving you anxiety, and you start thinking that your paper didn't go well and everything. But like keep faith in yourself that what you are doing it right, because accuracy is of utmost importance in this exam. So just try to focus on that, maintain your speed, maintain a consistent speed, and you'll be able to do that. So on that note, I think we are done with the sections part of it. Now we'll like to move to the Q&A part. I'll try to read all the questions and we'll answer it one by one as we see it. So the first question is from Abhishek Paul. And the question is how to control anxiety and stress while solving the paper.
So I'd like to go first. If anybody has any other thoughts to add, they can go ahead. So firstly, in during the paper, I think at that point of time, you have to just focus on the question at the moment. Like don't. I know this is difficult to say. I kind of I'm not one of those people who does like all those exercises like meditation and whatnot. But trust me, before the exam, when you're waiting outside and all of the students are there, all of you are anxious. Some of them are with your parents. I was alone, so I had nobody to talk to, and I'm seeing all these people who are being consoled and whatnot. So just take deep breaths. As I told you, so in DILR, I ended up not doing so well in the section. I ended up leaving the easy set. So just before starting the quant set, I just took like 30 seconds. I took like a lot of deep breaths and I just emptied my mind again. It may sound cliche, but seriously, if you just take those 10, 20 seconds out, you just take one step back, trust me, the impact it has on your performance is a lot. And in general, again, as I just said over and over again, you need to just prime yourself to not think of the exam of bigger than it is. And that's essentially what I did. So if any of you have anything to add.
Yes, I'd like to add. So I'll advise that fixate one thing, that you are better than others. in the end, it is a percentile game, not a percentage game, right? So if you are struggling in one section, there are chances that everybody else is. So fix this thing in mind. If you are struggling, then everyone else is also struggling. And even if you score less marks, you will score better percentile. In the end, percentile matters, right? So keep that thing in mind. So don't get bothered about the level of difficulty of the questions. So if a section is difficult, it's difficult for everyone. Keep this in mind. You will do well.
I think these two things combined has always worked for me as well. So what I used to think is that I don't have to score 100% marks. That is always true. I like when I start DILR, I have this thing in mind that I'll just attempt one set. After like I try it for some time, I go to another set. After doing one set, I think okay, let's do another one. So whatever I do is always a bonus. So don't always think that you have to attempt everything. Keep in mind that if you're not able to do anything, like nobody else is able to do it. And also deep breaths. That has always worked. Even like just keep that in mind that when you're about to go to the like give the paper, so there would at least be a window of 1 hour where you would be sitting idle on your terminal and you would be just waiting for the paper to start, and there would be no one whom you can talk to. So at that point it is like of utmost important that you maintain your calm and basically you just like try to just breathe, take deep breaths and just focus on what you are here for, and just keep the faith in mind that you will do good. So moving on to next question. The question is from Avi Agarwal. I haven't started doing mocks yet. Is it okay? What should I do? How many mocks should I take?
I think that is a tough one to answer at this point, right? I believe everyone will agree. Uh, if you haven't given mocks yet, I suggest you give one right after this session. Just to again, I said, be familiar with the interface. I believe your preparation might be all right, but the exam is all about giving the exam and trying to give a similar type of exam again and again is just a habit, I believe. So if you can maybe attempt 3 or 4 mocks going into it, I know analysis is an important part of it, but at this point, I would just advise giving mocks for the time anxiety part of it, where you actually sit in that time pressure and give that exam and knowing about the interface of the exam. And it's completely fine. I believe there might be multiple people. I think we have one in our section who just prepared a couple of days for CAT and ended up with a 99.9. So trust me, nothing is impossible in that case. I think, but it's time to buckle up and get going.
The next question is
my senior did not prep anything for CAT. So if the basic prep is strong, and even if it's not the main purpose of the mock, as Sahil said, like even if you score really well in the mock, it's just a mock. You score bad in the mock, it's a mock. It's not going to decide your selection into IIMs. Like you could be scoring like 99.99 in all your mocks, coming, or I don't know, all India rank 1 or to 10, and I think IMS shows you those. It doesn't really matter if on the D-Day it doesn't convert. And I personally know classmates, I myself struggled with mocks where I would end up with like 80 percentile and I would wonder what is happening. But on the D, it's what you do on this Sunday is all that matters. So don't take too much stress and just take a couple of mocks just to familiarize yourself.
So next question is on the similar lines. The question is from Jamie. So how was your performance in mocks before the CAT exam? So I think they wanted to ask on the similar lines. So just quick 1 minute.
So like as I mentioned, like for me the mocks used to vary. Like one mock I used to score bad in quant, one mock I used to not be able to solve anything in DILR. So like it became difficult for me to even track my weakness, because if I would discuss with anyone, it would be like, you have some weak section. I was like, all of the sections are weak. And like there would be like a series of 2-3 mocks where I would mess up VARC completely. So there would be fluctuations, but the important part was like keeping a track. The mistakes have a pattern. Most of the time your mistakes won't be random. Like if quant you're making a mistake, like as I mentioned earlier, for me it used to usually be in geometry. So if there's a geometry heavy paper, that would usually be when I get lesser in quant. Or in DILR, if it's a paper heavier in DI, because I should like solving puzzles, LR used to go well. So then I would struggle. So I identified those mistakes. So towards the end, I was able to kind of reduce the fluctuations. And that was kind of my story regarding my performance in mocks. If anybody else has anything to add.
Yes. I'd like to add. So my mock story was not very much good. Like before the CAT exam, like the last 3-4 weeks when I was attempting mocks, I wasn't scoring very well. In fact, it was kind of giving me vibes that I am not prepared well, or what is my weakness? Is it like that? The more I practice, the more weak I become. So that kind of doubt started coming. But as Sahil mentioned, that you stop at your best mock, right? So in the week of the CAT, I gave one mock and I scored more than 100 in that mock. Before that, I was scoring consistently like in 60s, 70s. So that was my score range. But that time when I scored, so that gave me confidence boost for the final week. And that's how I went. In that mindset, I went to the CAT exam. And on the D day also, I was able to perform well. So that turned out to be good. So don't get bothered about like your mock performances. What is the current stages? Believe in your preparation. Mocks again. There are many factors that come in the mocks. Like if you are giving it from your home. So it could be like that the surroundings are disturbing you much, or it could be that you are not fully prepared. Fully attentive during that mock. So these things could be there. So mocks are not the things that they look in the end. All that matters is the D-Day performance. So focus on that for now.
Yeah, I think me and Sahil would also have similar stories about this one. So that is not a thing to worry. Definitely, people have been able to do good despite low scores in mock in the past. So next question is from Varun. The question is it's more sort of we'll see. So stressed, worried, anxiety, all of these is interfering with the prep. What should I do? So yeah,
I'll take that up.
yeah.
See, the Varun, the thing is, stress, anxiety, worry, all of this is before you start writing the paper. The moment you start attempting, you're in the zone. Trust me, that's what happens. And worrying about that phase before the exam doesn't really do good to anybody. So it's important to not think of it in that way, because when you actually start and the first question comes up, you straight away dive into it. You're reading the passage, you're reading the question, and you don't know when the 2 hours are gone. So that anxiety won't be there when you're actually giving the paper. And that's the perspective I think everyone should be taking in that case, because it doesn't really matter if you're stressed right now, because on that day, you're going to give your best. So focus on your prep. Everyone talked about the important things that you should be covering in each section. Focus on that. I believe everyone will be doing just fine on the D-Day.
Right. So next question is from Akshat. I am getting 30-40 score in mock. Can I get more than 80 percentile in CAT?
Let me take that up. So again, that I mentioned that mocks aren't very much reflective of your true potential. So don't get bothered by the mock score, first thing. And second, scoring 80 percentile with this score range is pretty much possible. I think that you should also aim for a better percentile, but 80 percentile you can always cross with this with these marks because mocks are a little bit tougher than the actual exam because they train you for the worst, right? So if you are scoring 30-40 in the mocks, we rest assured that you have potential to score at least 60-80 in the final exam. And in fact, you can go beyond that if you are lucky enough that only your strong sections are coming in the exam. So you can go well beyond that. So have that confidence and have that faith in yourself. So it's pretty much possible, I'll say.
Right. So next question is from Athar. And the question is, panic is the only factor which is affecting a lot. So probably Athar wants to know what should he do. So I think this is something which we have discussed at length. right now. So there is nothing you need to like worry about at this point of time. And panic is the last thing which you should have at this point, or you should think about. The only like panic comes when you think about the results, that how would the exam go, what would I score in the exam, and everything. So at this point of time, you should not think about the result, the final scores you would get. You should just think about you should just think that you have done your prep well, and CAT is an exam which you can crack, very well crack, if you are well focused on that particular day, and basically you keep your cool on the right place. So moving on to next question, we have a question from Pranav. So the question is, what would be an ideal attempt range section wise for 95 percentile?
Um, the thing, so I kind of, like this question as well as the 80 percentile question, I just had this thought in mind that like don't try to fixate on like a percentile. Like I personally, each section I should just go with, I need to do my best. I didn't think that I need to get 95 percentile in each section. The thing is, each slot will vary, and year to year the paper changes. So it's very difficult for us sitting here, or even last year, for anybody to say beforehand without knowing. Like, even if you know which slot you're in, there is no algorithm which can predict and tell you that if you do X number out of 20, X out of 22, you're going to get 95 percentile. At the end of the day, you're competing with yourself. You just need to ensure that at that moment you attempt as many as you can and as accurately as you can. So I don't think any of us over here can give you that answer that how many you need to attempt. Just try to attempt as many with the surety that you would get them right. I think all of us sitting here mostly had focused on reducing the number of errors we had, reducing the number of minus ones that we would probably get from bubbling in a wrong option, like filling in a wrong option. I think that should be the key focus, and don't try to like fixate on like a 99 percentile or a 99.5. All that will come way later.
Again, I'll have to agree on this with Vinamra that it's a function of your accuracy, right? So we cannot possibly give a number like out of 20, going with 13 or going with 14 will fetch you 95 percentile. So it's a function of accuracy. Then I believe that you should go with giving your best, like whatever maximum you can attempt with again accuracy. So that thing you should keep in mind, and then whatever will happen will be best.
The thing is, even if we suppose tell you that you have to attempt 10 questions to get a 95 percentile, suppose. So you would have that bar in your mind while you're attempting the question, right? I have to at least get 10. And if you even get 9 and not 10, then you'll start messing up your next sections. So that is probably not the best way to look at the paper. Just follow your instincts and do as much as you can with the accuracy and consistent speed. So the next question is from Shatija. The question is, won't it be helpful if we ask about the previous slots to get an idea?
Not really, because like the slots vary. Each slot varies a lot from the previous slot, and there is, as I said, there is no pattern really. So it's not like, let's say the morning slot had a very difficult VRC. It's not necessarily the next slot will have easy VRC or the next slot will have a difficult quant. And there isn't really any correlation. I personally did not open my phone at all, the WhatsApp at least, to ask anybody how the slot was or anything, because it honestly doesn't make a difference. Even if the VRC then was difficult, and even in your slot it's going to be difficult, they're going to be different questions. And unnecessarily, if one of your strongest sections is a difficult one, like if for me I realize that quant is difficult, and if I start worrying about that in that 1 hour period that Aditya mentioned, that it actually I didn't think about it, but yes, sitting there and for 1 hour when you're doing nothing and there are just other applicants beside you, all of you are just sitting quiet waiting for the exam, and now I have an additional worry that, oh my god, my best section is going to be extremely hard. So you don't want to add additional, like all of you, like we were also like we were taking some amount of stress or anxiety last year. We want to limit the number of variables that are adding to that stress and anxiety. So
yeah, I agree with Vinamr. Actually, one thing I would like to add here is that you can probably ask the pattern of the exam in sense that how many questions are you getting in each of the sets. So that is the maximum extent to which you can go. So that you also like settle it in your mind. Okay, so there are 33 questions or 34 questions. What is the distribution? You can probably ask that. That is all. Anything you ask after that would be highly subjective. What is tough for someone would not actually be tough for you or would not actually be easy for you. So subjectivity kicks in, and there is absolutely no correlation in the level of questions in the pattern of paper. The only thing is basically probably the structure of the paper that you can ask. Yeah, but anything else to add, Vinod?
No, I think that is a very good point, because if my quant is good and someone else's quant isn't that good, he could say that quant is difficult.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's basing it on. And as I said,
Yeah.
even within quant, let's say me and Aditya are really good. His geometry may be rock solid. He'll say, "Arey, easy paper tha." And mine will be really bad. So that's not a fair feedback I'm getting regarding that section. So don't need to unnecessarily get into all this. Just as I said, the structure of the paper is important. You could ask like how if there's a change in number of RCs, number of I don't know questions total. That's the only thing you need to ask.
Also, don't stress about the slots you get. So some people would get one, some people would get the second slot, some people would get the third slot. So like some people basically unnecessarily stress that I have got a second slot, I have got a third slot, I wanted the first one. Basically, it doesn't matter whichever slot you get. There are different variables that are attached with each of the slots. There's a lot of uncertainty in the first slot. They don't even know how many questions they are going to face. In the second and third slot, at least you know that how many questions they are going to face. But again, in the second and third slot, you have to safeguard you against all the external feedback, all the external basically noises about how the paper is going around and everything else. So there are pros and cons attached with each of the slots, and there is a sort of uh, averaging out that the controller of the exam does for each of the slots. So there would not be much of the variation across slots in the final scores which you'll get. So don't just stress about it. That was one thing which I wanted to add.
Yeah, like the normalization aspect of it. So the slot two last year, I think, was the most relatively higher scoring slots. So you come out and like after even the answer key, you would be scoring really high. But in the end, like my score was normalized and I lost a lot of marks. And if your section, you end up in a section where you score less, you may end up with a lot of extra marks. So these are all very external factors outside your control. Just focus on what you can.
Next question is from Manan. So he writes, I used to score consistently 30 plus marks in VARC, but suddenly it has dropped. So, like, what should we do?
So I'd like to take this question because I have similar experience last year. So what my experience is, I had a strong LRDI section, like you have a strong VRC section. So I used to score like 30s and 40s in the LRDI section in the mocks. Now in the month of November, what started to happen that it started to decline. My section marks started to decline, and I even scored single digit marks in two of my mocks in the November month. So I was really very worried. Like in the last month, in the last week, I remember that I called my friend and said that I have prepared so much and I was so good at it, and suddenly I'm not able to crack any kind of sets in the ILR. What should I do? So I believe that it is not because that your quality has dropped suddenly. In fact, that has gone up because you have seen more sets. It's because that the surroundings and the anxiety and the stress, all these things are getting in your head. And because of that, you are fluctuating a bit. And I believe, Manan, you should be a little bit happy that it is happening now. You will possibly settle up before the D-Day because of this, all this, what should I say, the fluctuation in the marks. So all this will settle up before the actual exam day. So that is one good thing that you can think of this situation from this perspective. That happened good for me as well. Like in the D-Day, LRDI was the best section. Like I scored best in the LRDI section. So think in the positive terms for this, whatever is happening. So yeah, anyone wants to add their experience here?
I think that is all what you said, Shubham. We all like definitely agree to it and have faced similar situations. So next question is from Shiva. The question is, in quants, do you read every question completely before deciding to leave or attempt, or do you just scan quickly and decide to attempt or leave based on strength and intuition?
Okay, I'll take that up if you want. So the thing is, before getting into quants, I'm sure you've identified what areas you're good at, what you're not good at. Vinamra is not good at geometry, so he knows he's not good at geometry, right? So that is one thing I'm pretty sure everyone has identified. When you're reading a question, I believe any question is not as big that you'll take a minute to read it. Maybe 20-30 seconds, that should be enough to just read it once and go through the options. And you know then and there which part this is coming from. If you know it is geometry, Vinamra is going to leave it for now and he's going to come back to it later. And that's the best strategy to follow, to be honest, because that's what you're doing. You're playing to your strengths and you're coming back later to the questions that you feel are not really your piece of cake. So do that's a simple thing that you can do. Just scan through it. You'll know where it is from. If you feel it's doable, it's a small question, go for it. Else come back to it later. It won't do you any kind of harm.
So we all know that we have to be like Vinamra. So the next question is from Manan. The question reads as my mock percentiles in the first attempt and this attempt also ranges around 95 to 99. But in actual CAT, I ruined it in 2021, and this year also anxiety is pulling me back. So Manan, we will just reiterate what we have been saying, that Joe, don't just think about the results and the scores right now. What you need to think is only that you have done all your prep right. You are right on the spot where you need to be. Just keep your calm, go give the paper, and you will do the best. Just don't think about anything else. Uh, Try like practicing deep breaths and like just keep confidence.
A simple thing to put it in perspective. MS Dhoni lost the 2007 World Cup. He was much experienced when he came back in 2011. That's the same case with you. You're now, you know what went wrong. This year, you're going to absolutely kill it. You just go in with that confidence. That should be enough.
Yes. So next question is from Devyansh. I am having difficulty in LRDI. Till now, I haven't solved even a single set fully in mocks. I was just learning from the solution video in mocks and did not get any proper resources. What to do?
Okay, so LRDI is, as I already said, is a tricky section, and it requires a lot of practice and patience to master it completely. But looking at where you are currently, what you should do is like I am giving a very mechanical solution here. What you can do is at least go for past year papers, like past 3-4 years, and understand what kind of set is being covered by CAT in these recent sections. Don't look for the very old paper like 2001, 2002. Pattern has changed a lot, so just look for like previous year, past 5-year papers, or that range. That would be first thing. Second, I believe it is more about now. It's more about your mental conditioning rather than going for the knowledge acquiring. So don't look for new kind of puzzles. Don't go solve. Don't sit and solve too many puzzles at this point of time. Just look at whatever CAT has covered till now, and be sure that you cover all that those kind of set at least. So this will ensure you that you have some kind of exposure to what is the level of difficulty that CAT is going to ask me. So that is something that you can get at this moment in the last 5-6 days. So try to get that.
Um, that was very helpful. So moving on to next question. It's a question from Abhay. So he's asking, please tell me after CAT we are going to have like he's basically concerned about the interviews probably that we'll be facing after the CAT. So again, what we just told is that don't think about the results, scores, interviews, anything that comes after the exam right now. Just think about going on and giving the exam. We would definitely we try to take other sessions as well for the interviews, and you'll get enough number of resources for that as well after the examinations. So just focus on examinations right now. Next question is from Shiva. So in VARC, I have been constantly attempting three RCs and all VA, and I have been getting around 30 marks in mocks. Most VRC toppers attempt all 24. Should I stick to attempt 220 or go for the full attempt?
So I don't like over attempting. I don't think is ever a good policy because we've been saying this over and over again. Like the negative marks, if you get even a -1, that can be the difference between you getting your call from your dream college or not. And if you've noticed, like all of us in each subject would have over a period of time in the mocks noticed that there is a range in which we usually perform the best. And even if a person in VARC is doing really well, your strength may not be like you do not need to ace all three sections at the same level to get like a 99, a 95, or even a 90 percentile. You just need to ensure that one section is really good and the other two are above average. So I personally would not go for going for all 24. I would recommend like the Theta questions which don't have any negative marking. Those questions, like definitely do attempt them because you're not going to lose anything. So I think in my VARC, I had zero. I think I didn't had a single negative mark because in the RC section I did not attempt anything which I wasn't confident in, and Theta I attempted everything, and most of my wrong answers were in that section. So I didn't really suffer anything in my percentile due to that. And similar even in quant and for that matter DILR. In the Theta questions, I would just try to make some kind of reasonable guess if I had half solved the question or try to force and fit values. So I personally would recommend against over attempting if you are not confident in that and there is a negative mark in that question.
If I were to just add a bit to it, see, you're already attempting 20. Attempting 20 and attempting 24 doesn't have much of a difference if I were to be completely honest about it. If you're attempting 20 with a decent accuracy, you're surely getting a 99 percentiler in the section. So changing your strategy right now to accommodate those 4 extra questions might prove harmful than actually useful in this case. So I would suggest just keep doing what you have been doing. It'll definitely work out very well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sahil and Vinamra here. And yeah, you should just be confident on what strategy you have been following and what has worked till now for you. So the next question is from Abhay. So the question reads out as what we do now. Okay, so he's basically asking about if he should do mock analysis now or he should look for new questions and he should attempt more basically mocks probably. So this is something related to what we have been pressing on is that you should just now be trying to get your head straight on what you have achieved till now. Just get everything on right place. Don't look for new resources right now. Just go through the analysis of what you have been doing till now and just focus on your strategy. So attempting new questions would probably not be the best possible way at this particular point of time. So the next question is from Priyal. The question is, what was your attempt strategy for quant?
I'll take that up. I'll be honest with you. This quant historically till the day of CAT was the worst section that I ever attempted. Right, I never scored good scores. As it turns out, in CAT, that was my highest percentile section wise. So a simple strategy is attempt what your strengths are. Just focus on that because the more accurate you are, the better results they are going to get for you. Also, one thing that actually helps in this case is going by the questions. There were quite a few questions where I could going by the options. I'm sorry. There are quite a few questions where you actually can see the option that this might fit in, or you can actually try all 4 options in the question and it will just be easier on the calculator. It might take you 40-45 seconds to try all 4 and get the answer rather than actually writing down everything. So that is something that I think should be focused on, which is actually underrated, to be honest. It will really help you attempt those 3 or 4 extra questions, which will get you to cross that 99 percentile, hopefully.
One thing I'd like to add that what I used to do is I used to open that section in the question paper mode. There is one option, question paper mode. So you can look each and every question there, right? So sometimes what happens is people start, like, they get the first question, they start solving, they keep on doing it till 40 minutes, and they don't even look at the end questions, and sometimes miss the easier questions. So first, I used to do is look at all the questions, pick the easier ones, like the strong sections or the very small questions. So that's how I increase my attempt numbers. So that is one thing that you can also do.
One interesting thing which has happened to me in this particular section has always been that I have always observed that 3 or 4 questions which are at the last of the set are always very, very easy. So what I used to do, I used to start from the top. Whenever I get stuck at one particular question, I would just skip the whole paper and I would start from the last, because it like somehow it got fixed in my mind that the questions at the last are always easier. So just look into whatever works for you. Just don't get stuck on one particular question. Just keep moving around and things will be good. Next question is from Divyansh. The question is, are past year 1990s to 2008 paper helpful?
Divyansh, at this point, to be honest, you can ignore those. We are 6 days to CAT. I think there's no point visiting something which was done 14 years ago. I think you have enough material present through other possible sources. So yeah, you can just ignore those.
I think the pattern
has changed a lot. Yes,
Exactly.
pattern has changed a lot, so it won't be helpful much.
The next question is from Harshit. In most of my mocks, I screw up in one section, owing to which my overall score comes down. And that section can be like anyone. There's no particular weak section that he has been able to identify. So how to overcome this?
Okay, Harshit, I think you specifically mentioned that you don't have any particular weak section. That's the biggest strength I think all of us can see in that case. If you are able to flawlessly attempt other sections, all sections in different mocks, you are already there, mate. You just have to keep your mind straight during the exam. Don't feel the burden of one section on the other. And yeah, you should be good to go. You're doing well, it seems already.
The next question is from Shruti. What should I do to improve accuracy in quant?
So as I said, like ideally, I don't know how many people have done this. But as I mentioned earlier in the session, also it used to be do it in kind of multiple goes. The first one used to be the easiest ones, which you're definitely sure you're getting it right. And the second one would be the topics which perhaps you are good in, but you thought those questions were a little bit difficult. And at this point of time in the last week, there isn't, I think, like I can't give you like a proper roadmap that in last week I can make this thing jump. Only thing I would suggest against is like unnecessarily attempting questions where you're not confident. In the sense that if don't try to over attempt for the sake of attempting that question if you feel that you haven't attempted enough, because like the minus ones, the negatives really hurt. So definitely play on your strengths. And I know this has been raised a lot regarding my troubles with geometry, but it could also be the other thing can happen, like just in the second round, the topics which you're perhaps not so strong in, they may have a really like a sitter of a question. So don't like completely neglect it too. Those first 2 rounds that you will be going through your quant questions, those are essentially where the game would be. For me, I had kind of mentally decided that that's where I would score majority of my marks. So that's kind of, if you have some other strategy you've been doing till now, like you must have tweaked your strategy over the last few months, or you must have thought that this is working for me, this isn't. Just see what kind of hybrid works for you and go with it. Don't try to make too many changes at the last moment, because there is a rhythm that of attempting the paper you would have settled in to right now. So that would be my advice.
Aditya, I think we are running overboard in
Right.
terms of time. Let's just run through a couple of quick questions and then we can close this maybe.
Right. I think I'll just read out a couple of questions. We can just go one by one on them, and then we can probably close the question, close this part due to time constraint. So there are a few questions on what would be the pattern of this year. Basically, will it surprise us? It always surprises.
It always surprises.
Uh, and I think the next question is how to tackle para jumpers. So you can just quickly go on it. So parajumbles is a section basically which is I suppose a theta kind of question. So there you just have to read. What I did was I just used to read quickly through all the possible sentences, and then I would try to frame a story in my mind that what could come first logically and what could come second. There's also a way in which you could connect how you could think how the sentences are connecting. So one particular sentence would have all the names or probably all the things which would set the context. So that could be the first sentence, and then the story would be building as per the sentences. So that could be another way.
See,
So
a simple strategy in this case is if you're not able to identify your starting sentence in the first 1 minute, just let it go. In the end, come back to it and fill in whatever you like because it's a theta question. If you're not able to hit it in the first minute, I think you should move on, not spend time on it.
yeah, I think this has always worked for most of us. I would take the last question for today. So the question reads as I have not solved 17 to 19 past year papers. Should I do them now, especially LRDI? So this is something we have already addressed that at this particular point of time, there is no point of starting anything new, attempting any new paper or anything like that. The strategy, the paper pattern for CAT has been changing for all the years. The basically you can face unexpected there. So just keep your mind in the right place, be confident, and go on and hit the paper.
Um, I think then that should be it. It was a great session, I believe. Thanks to everyone who joined in, asked their queries. I believe those queries were helpful to quite a few people who joined in and couldn't really put up their queries. Thanks to Vinamra, Aditya, and Shuvrang. It was really insightful. Even I got some new tips from this. Won't be useful, but yeah.
I
I
also
hope you
enjoyed this
don't.
session. I also enjoyed the session, and I hope that we helped some of you joining us in the live chat. So we helped some of you through our advices, and all the best to everyone that is watching who are watching. All the best
And
for the
like
team.
if anyone of you wants to reach out, you can just like send a request, like DM on LinkedIn or somewhere else. All of us are like
Yes, that is completely fine. Yes, sure.
All of
we are
us,
there
all
there
of
to help
us
you.
would be available to help. Thanks a lot to the Inside IIM team for arranging this. This
And
was
all the
this
best
was
to
really
all
nice.
that have joined.
Thank you. All the best. Just go and crack it.
All the best. Thank you.